I am Shonté Jovan Taylor, and you are having coffee with the neuroscientist.
Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on when you are watching this. I am Shonté Jovan Taylor, neuroscientist and success strategist, and you are having coffee with the neuroscientist. This podcast is all about having powerful conversations with people who are on a mission, using their gifts, their talents, their strengths in such a way that helps to empower others, bring out their potential, and unlock the geniuses in the world in order to really collectively transform humanity. So, with us today, not only are you having coffee with one neuroscientist, you're having coffee with two neuroscientists. Welcome, Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Thank you so much, Shanta. It's so lovely to meet you and to talk to a fellow neuroscientist. And it's just, this is so exciting. I love it. We have a common goal and mission, and it's just so important to bring this message to the world.
Absolutely. I'm so looking forward to the audience and the world hearing your message and mission and how you change the world. But before
Oh,
we get
thank
into
you.
that, Dr. Leaf, I have to ask, are you a coffee or a tea drinker?
I'm definitely a coffee drinker. I permanently have my coffee with me. So it's always, it goes every, goes everywhere with me now. I love tea too, but very much a coffee drinker. Black.
Here, here.
Yeah, I like black organic coffee, and I try all these different brands, and I've got a few
Mhm.
favorites, but it's really good for the brain. So that's really, like, coffee is good for the brain, people.
Yes. Here, here.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers, cheers. And do you put anything in it or you drink it straight black?
Just black. I love it black.
That
So
is how my husband drinks it as well. I tend to put a little almond milk and a dash of cinnamon.
that's lovely too. That is so nice. Yeah, I agree. My daughter does that. One of my daughters does that too. That's the way to drink coffee as well. It's wonderful.
Yes, yes, cinnamon is good for the brain, people.
So good. So good. And for balancing blood sugar, so it's got a lot of good benefits.
Absolutely, absolutely. You see, we can put
We can,
neuroscience behind anything, can't we, Dr.
well,
Lee?
it is. Absolutely, absolutely. Oh.
I just want to introduce the world, my tribe to you, those who haven't heard of you yet. Dr. Caroline Leaf is a communication pathologist and neuroscientist whose passion is to help people to see the power of their mind, to change the brain, and control chaotic thinking and find mental peace. How many of you want to find some mental peace,
Yeah.
especially nowadays, right? She is the author of several books, including Switch on Your Brain, Think and Eat Yourself Thin, The Perfect You. And she has several journal articles and videos and a top rated podcast called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. And she's also been seen globally by millions on her TV episodes. And she does research academically. She teaches in the medical realm. Your resume just goes on and on. And on top of that, she's a wife and a mother of four. So you are literally a superhuman.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, it sounds like you are too.
I try. Well, when we harness the power of the brain, we can literally become superhumans if we learn to understand it, first of all,
Exactly.
harness parts of our brain and learn how to intentionally design and activate parts of our brain to go to the next level of this human experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your brain just does what you tell it to do. So that's why it's so important to understand the mind brain connection so that you can learn how to harness that power, which is what I've spent 38 years researching. Because I thought that's an area that's really been neglected in terms of this in this field. We've become so caught up, and I've watched this trajectory over my 38-year career, is I've watched this trajectory of as we've learned more about the brain, which is fantastic, but we've forgotten about the sort of human aspect. We've gone a little bit away from, not a little bit, a lot away from the context of humanity. And that's really landed us in a very interesting place in society at the moment where we are so advanced medically and technologically wise and brain wise. We have so much wonderful knowledge about neuroscience, yet we've gone backwards when it comes to mind. And that's affected people's lifespan. People are dying younger now than they've ever died in decades, which is crazy. So we have to do something. So it's very good that you and I are doing what we're doing, because we have to arrest this crazy situation that's actually happening that a lot of people don't even know about.
Absolutely. There's still room to teach billions of minds how to effectively use their brain so that they can feel more in control of their lives, and that they can really direct the direction of their lives, and get control of that, what you call chaotic thinking. And one of the reasons I wanted to connect with you is because reading your book and just watching you over the years.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Cleaning up
you.
your mental mess. 5 simple scientifically proven steps to reduce anxiety, stress, and toxic thinking. This is your current book. You
Yes.
are, Dr. Leaf, a rebel. You are.
Love that.
Recognize other rebels. I mean, you are on this mission essentially to shift the paradigms and the stigmas when it comes to diagnosing or stigmatizing people with mental health issues, anxiety, depression. I mean, can you share what is your philosophy on that? Because I mean, when people think of those those issues, they automatically link it to some kind of disease or illness, and people don't want to admit they have these things, and that means they can't get the help.
Well, I'm glad that's really a great place to start, Shonté, because it's so vital that we actually understand what is going on and the messaging that has been given to us for the last 40 years. And it's not the most scientific message that's been brought forth, and it really concerns me. So let's just backtrack very quickly. 40 years ago, there was a very, I'd say a better understanding of the mind brain, because they're not the same thing, separation and the integration. There was a large body of research already, and then it was developing. But there was also a lot wrong 40 years ago, because 40 years ago, they didn't believe that the brain could change. So they believed the mind could change, but not the brain. But obviously the mind uses the brain. They're two separate things, but the mind uses the brain and the brain responds. And we should probably talk about the difference in the moment once I've given my philosophy. But and I did some of the first neuroplasticity research back in the 80s, as I mentioned to you, where we were trained in our neuroscience classes, and neuroscience was in its infancy in those days. We were trained that, the brain can't change. Or once someone's had a traumatic brain injury, or they've got any signs of Alzheimer's or learning disabilities, well, that's it. You can't really do much with them. And I've always challenged that question. And that question that I challenged was, they actually did a TED talk on this. A lot of my professors said that was a ridiculous question, because I said, obviously your mind is changing. Your mind uses the brain responds to the mind. There's an integrative relationship between the two. Then obviously the brain can change. And that's really good for humanity, because that means we can direct our neuroplasticity through our mind. And that's when some of my professors said, that's a ridiculous question. As I said, I did a TED talk on this. And also, so that just prompted me into the research that I've done all these years, which is working to understand the mind and the mind-brain interaction, what the difference is between the mind and the brain. So fast forward to your question, and we can always come back to the mind-brain difference, is currently, so I watched over the 40 years how we shifted from looking at a person's context. So if a person was feeling sad or depressed or anxious or had, worried about things or not coping or whatever the behaviors were, we would look at that as the person in context. What is going on in your life? Because however we show up, there's a reason. We don't just show up. The way we show up, there's always an underlying reason for how we show up. And that was always kind of part of the context, that you would just get all the team, all the professional, let's work out what is going on. Then as I watched over the years, it just suddenly transitioned into this labeling. As in the late 80s, Prozac was delivered to the world, and then suddenly we had this massive influx of different psychotropic drugs, and suddenly it was all about mental illness. Instead of it being people reacting to life circumstances, it became mental illnesses. And then it got even deeper, and we became more and more neuroreductionistic, so we became more and more focused on the brain. And here I've got a brain and a skull, not a real one, but we became so focused on, and I should say the scientific community. There were two splits in the scientific community, one that was very much focused on brain, and the other one that was focused on mind-brain, the difference between the two. And as people became more focused on the brain, it became all about biology. It became all about where in your brain is depression, where in your brain is anxiety, where in here is the cause of. And that's the wrong way of looking at it, because if you did, your brain can't do anything. So the difference between you and I being alive and having this conversation, and the listeners and viewers and dead people, is our mind. So our mind is our aliveness, and our mind is how we experience life. And our mind uses the brain to store those experiences as these thought trees that look like trees. So I always use the analogy of little trees, because the thoughts in the brain look like trees. So a lot of my work has been around understanding that and understanding what thoughts are, and memory and mind and brain. And so the philosophy, my overarching philosophy, which I talk about in the beginning of the book, is that that depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar, all these scary words are not mental illnesses. They're not chemical imbalances. There's no scientific validation to saying that they are chemical imbalances or that they have a genetic cause or a neurobiological cause. Those, whatever we see in the brain as a result of, is as a result of, not the cause of. Unless, of course, if people have a traumatic brain injury or have a tumor or something like that, that can obviously result in emotional issues because the mind and the brain are working together. But in general, if someone is feeling like current pandemic, I mean, for a year now, how have we lived? People have lost loved ones, finances, uncertainty. The people are going to feel depressed and anxious. There is an increase in suicide rates because the world has turned upside down. So that doesn't mean that we suddenly have a world filled with increasing mental illness. What we have is a world filled with people that are responding in a very normal way to adverse circumstances. So to feel depressed or anxious in response to loss of a loved one, or loss of your finances, or loss of certainty of your future, or coming out of university, you've got no future. It feels like, what's my future? Where do I go? I can't. Putting people in isolation, and we had to do that to understand. But all of these things have had massive impact on people's mental health. But it doesn't make them mentally ill. And saying that you have a mental illness is not going to solve it. If you've been repeatedly abused or bullied or had major trauma, and all of us have trauma in life, it doesn't mean that you are mentally ill. It means that you have, as a person, experienced trauma, and that trauma is then going to change how your brain functions and how your body functions, because the trauma is experienced by your mind and built into your brain, and therefore impacts you and impacts how you show up. So depression and anxiety are not mental illnesses. They are warning signals. It's a huge difference, and it's a very hopeful difference. They are warning signals. They are symptoms alerting us to an underlying issue. And this is where I always normally use my toxic tree, because every experience that we have is, if it's healthy, it'll be a nice healthy tree in the brain, and it looks different. As you and I both know, we're going to see a different kind of structure for a thought that is an experience that is a healthy experience versus a thought that is a toxic experience. There is an actual difference in everything about that thought. And I always use this analogy because it's easy to understand that as you experience something, there's the root, that's the cause of the experience, and that then is manifesting in how you think, feel, and choose about the experience. This is all built into these thought trees into the brain, and this manifests as how you show up in the world. So if you are showing up with lots of depression, and there's a pattern of depression, and depression, it's always comorbid, so it's never on its own. So you'll have anxiety with it, you may have panic attacks, you may have despair, you may have trepidation. It's always got a lot of other stuff attached to it. That doesn't mean that you're mentally ill. It means that those are warning signals that there's something going on. There's a cause, there's a root cause, there's something you experienced, and you need to be a thought detective and to pay attention to the warning signals and backtrack to your thoughts and perceptions, your thinking, feeling, and choosing, and perceptions and behaviors, etc., right down to the root cause. And that's what I've investigated and researched and applied clinically for all these years, is how do we do that? How do we take those external ways we're showing up in the world and track back to find the underlying causes, and then reconceptualize that into a healthy version that we can then control. So our past that's traumatic and our toxic habits don't have to control us. We can actually identify them, embrace, process, and reconceptualize them into a healthy version so that we can change how the past plays out into the future. And that's an ongoing issue. So mental health is not something new. It is, and I'll wrap up this. I've given you a long answer, but basically we can unpack all of this. But basically the overarching thing is that all humans since the beginning of time have battled with their mind, because when you're alive and in life, things happen. Good and bad stuff, and sometimes very traumatic stuff, and sometimes repetitive traumatic stuff. So we respond with our mind, and we build that response into the brain, and that goes for all humans. So all humans are messy. All humans will suffer anxiety and depression to different levels and on the continuum, obviously, depending on what they've gone through. And all humans need to learn how to manage their mind, which is why I call it cleaning up your mental mess. So that's kind of the big overarching. I threw in a lot of stuff there, and I don't know what you'd like to unpack there.
Yes, I love it. I love throughout your book And I honestly only got through half of it because like every other line, I'm like, wow, and
Oh, I'm very honored. Coming from you, I'm very honored. Thank you.
well, I love how you are able to state a concept, an idea or fact, but also say it again in another way that can resonate with people who are not into the sciences. You use
Exactly.
analogies that are helpful so people can remember, okay, my brain is like this. This is how I can think about this. Now I can implement, that neurocycle that I hope you talk about later.
Yes.
Because if people don't remember what they read, what they learned, they're not going to implement it. They're not going to apply it. And you do discuss that in your book as well.
Yeah.
And I love how you talked about, reframed it. Depression, anxiety, those are signals.
Yeah.
Like any other signal, just like when you're hungry and you get hunger pains, right?
Exactly.
So you can use that same thought pattern when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling irritated or triggered. That is, it's a way for you to say, hey, I need to do something. Now let me, look at the tools I have, the mental management tools. Which ones can I implement? So you're saying that people don't have the mental management tools
to
handle the stuff that comes up for them in their brain, and that is essentially why you decided to include that in
in the book.
Your book. Okay, so what is mental management, and then
mind management?
Mind management. First, define further what's the difference between the mind and the brain, because a lot of people use it interchangeably, right?
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've seen that in your work as well as a neuroscientist, that it's used by the scientific community as well, and then it's in the popular media. It's used by doctors all over the place, mind and brain. So that's been the messaging for about 40 years. 40 years ago, it wasn't the messaging, and so it's fairly new to mix up the mind and the brain, and to talk about the brain. There's a lot of the popular media tends to has hooked onto a version of science, which is only one version. And you being a scientist, you know this. There's obviously multiple versions when we study something, and that's what science is. We're supposed to be searching and getting knowledge and changing and growing and agreeing to disagree. So it's very unfortunate when one framework is presented to the general public, and that's what's being presented. And the general framework has been exposed to the fact that mind and brain are the same thing, and that your brain produces your mind. Now that's impossible. Like, I can take a dead brain out. You and I can go dissect a brain out of someone's head. Not that we're going to do that when you're alive, don't worry. And we could hold it up all day and look at it all day, Shonté. It's never going to do anything. The only reason your brain is actually, we can go and do an MRI or an fMRI or QEEG or any kind of technology, brain technology, and see response in the brain, is because you're alive. And it's your aliveness which is the mind. So the brain is the physical part of you. So I've got this little model, and here's a model of the brain of the body. And this is the physical part. And this is around about, from the research I've done, and just from the research that I've tracked over all the years to build up the body of research I do, I developed a theory years ago, which I've continued to develop and refine. And in that, I show that the brain and the body are the physical part of us, and it's about 1 to 10% of who we are as humans. So the other 90 to 99% is what? It's mind. So mind is the biggest part of us. If you imagine a cloud around this body, that's kind of what mind is. It's this gravitational field. It's this electromagnetic field that is around the brain and the body, and that moves through the brain and the body. It's what we see when we look at an fMRI, or what we see when we look at QEEG, or what we see when we see the electrical activity in the blood, for example. And we see the activity of the hormones through the body, and we see the heart beating, and we see that electrical activity, or that electromagnetic activity, is mind moving around and through the brain and the body. And it's basically like a gravitational field. Now that's on a very physics level. So on a physics level, what we see is that neither you nor I are floating because of gravity. We are in gravitational fields that keep us anchored to the ground. What not me specifically, but what scientists have discovered, is that we also have gravitational fields around our bodies. And an easy way to understand that is, think of a magnet. And if you take a magnet and you put it on a piece of paper, you may have done this at school, where there's a whole pile of iron filings, and just like a bunch of iron filings, and you bring the magnet up, you put it in the middle, and suddenly the iron filings arrange themselves in a pattern that kind of looks like a spider around the magnet. Now that is an electromagnetic field that is there. It's around the magnet, but when you hold the magnet up, you can't see the field. But when you put it in the iron filings, you can see the field. That's kind of what mind is like. There's a field. We can't see it, but when we actually, when we talk and whatever we say and do, that's like the arrangement of the iron filings. That's expressing the field. So the mind is this energetic quantum physics, gravitational field. Einstein did work on this back in the early 20th century. That's on a physics level. On a psychological level, the mind is how you think, how you feel, and how you choose. Those three things. You'll see in the book I define mind, and it's these three things. So it's how you think, how you feel, and how you choose. You're always thinking, you're always feeling, you're always choosing. You can never separate those three. You can't think without feeling and choosing. They're always happening together. So think of the mind as this gravitational field on a sciencey level, on a neurophysics level, but on a psychological level, this is think, feel, choose. So right now, as we are having this conversation, there are words that you are hearing and there's images that you're seeing. But what the listeners, as you and I both know, it's actually auditory sound waves and electromagnetic light waves, and that's what's actually being received by this field. And then it's being converted in by the mind. So your mind receives this, you think, feel, choose, push it through the brain, and then the brain responds electrically, magnetically, and chemically and genetically, and builds and converts these sound waves and these light waves and this information into thought trees. But it's your mind that's doing that work, because your brain can't do it when you're dead. And you've always got to remember that. So it's your ability to think and feel and choose about what you're experiencing that creates these structural changes in the brain, where you build these thoughts into the dendrites, which are on top of the little the little neurons. And they have these, and so thoughts are these tree-like structures, the roots being the source, and then the branches being your interpretation. So the roots and the branches are the memories. So thoughts and memories are also not the same thing. So when I talk about being a thought detective, I'm talking about, let's look at our behaviors, let's look at our signals, the emotions, our behaviors, etc., to go and track back, where did that come from? Because you can't just say and do something. We have to use the brain and the body to be able to store and help us experience and help us express what we've experienced. So here you're listening to what I'm saying, all of you, that is information coming in as light waves, etc. Your this energy cloud, your think, feel, choose receives that, you kind of digest that, you push it through the brain responds on all these levels, and my words are, and our words together are becoming a tree in the brain. But our words are in the root part. These are all the root memories. So like a tree is made of branches, thoughts are made of memories. Everything we're saying is in the root part, and then how each person is uniquely interpreting what they're hearing is in the branches. This is how you think, feel, and choose about this information. And as we say, more things, more roots, more branches, more root memories, more branch memories, more root memories, more branch memories. By the end of this conversation, you would probably have around about 2,000 little root memories of this conversation and about 2,000 little branch memories. And if you do nothing with this, it'll just disappear within 48 hours. It'll convert, because it's energy. It'll just convert to heat energy. Or if you do something, you read the book or re-listen to the podcast or study the stuff that you and I teach, then this will become more and more solid and you'll be able to apply it in your life. So that's the basic principle that's operating. So that's what mind does. Mind is you. You have this ability to grab information and direct the process. So mind management is managing this process. That's the thought detective concept. And how do I manage it? I've got to observe myself. I've got to become aware of how I'm functioning in the world. How am I showing up? That's the most basic understanding of mind management. Now, we know from neuroscientific research that you can actually consciously and deliberately manage how you are thinking, feeling, and choosing in any one moment every 10 seconds. So that doesn't mean you're going to set your timer to go off every 10 seconds. It just means that you can consciously and deliberately, while you are awake, manage how you are thinking, feeling, and choosing. So it's like if you're in a conversation with someone, how's your body language? How's your intonation pattern? What did you say? What was the impact of what you said? And can you change it? Have you upset them? Did you make it worse? Can you make it better? Did you overreact? Did you respond? You can change that. You can monitor that. You can see someone says something nasty to you. How did you react? Are you going to let that affect you? If you let that affect you, it's going to affect how you function the rest of the day. You can observe yourself and see, I constantly seem to be upset about this kind of thing. There's a pattern. What are the patterns? If there's a pattern that's consistent in your life, that's a warning signal that you've got some established stuff that needs to be dealt with. You've got some established trauma that needs to be dealt with. So mind management is this process of consciously and deliberately managing your mind all day long. And people might think, well, that's impossible to do. Well, you're doing it anyway, but you're doing it in a messy way. So your mind is always being managed. But if you don't manage it in a very self-regulated way, it's then you have a reactive mind management. Reactive mind management will lead to a messy mind and a messy brain. We're not wired for that. We actually wired, and there's some neuroscientists, the famous neuroscientists that have won Nobel Prizes, that have described the brain as being wired for love. And what they're simply meaning is basically that the brain and the body are not wired for fear or anxiety or depression, etc. So when we do wire that in, it'll wire in with the proteins forming incorrectly, the vibrations are not correct, the neurochemistry is not correct. This is as real as the COVID virus, for example. And we know that when the COVID virus enters the body, the immune system immediately sends out response. T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, macrophages to try and get rid of this, because this threatens our wired for love survival mode. So and that we understand that, because everyone talks, you can't not understand that in the pandemic. But most people don't realize that your brain and body respond to a toxic issue that's unmanaged, something that's suppressed, an established trauma that is manifesting in how you're showing up, in the same way as it responds to the COVID virus. These things are real. Thoughts are thoughts within memories, root memories, and how you understand your interpretation memories are as real as the COVID virus or as a bacteria in your body. And so your immune system responds to these in the same way. So if we don't get rid of them, that then changes the entire environment of the brain and the body. So these are in the brain, but they also get built into the DNA of every cell of the body. And they're in the gravitational fields as this weird wave instead of a healthy wave. And all of that together over time is going to increase our vulnerability to disease by 35 to 98%. And that means if your body's increased in vulnerability, that's going to mean that whatever's out there could maybe make you sick. So how do we manage that process? What we need to do is recognize our agency, that we're brilliant, that we have the ability to consciously and deliberately manage our mind. Our mind is always with us. You can't go on holiday and leave your mind behind. You go on holiday with your mind. You make the decision to go on holiday with your mind. You wake up with your mind. You eat with your mind. You dress with your mind. You converse with your mind. You do your business with your mind. You parent with your mind. You have your relationships with your mind. You eat with your mind. You go to exercise with your mind. You go to sleep with your mind. You dream with your mind. Your mind is always this think, feel, choose. Think, feel, choose. It never stops. So if you don't manage it, it becomes very reactive. And that creates a lot of toxicity in the brain and the body. So in the last 40 years, we have been trained out of mind management because we've become so focused on the symptom being a disease. And the chemical imbalance theory, for example, is a complete myth. No scientist worth their grain of salt will talk about a chemical imbalance. As you and I both know, was never even a proven theory, but that's the language that people are told. You're depressed, you have a chemical imbalance, we can correct the chemicals in your brain. That's not the case. Yes, you may have a terrible experience, and that experience is built through your mind into your brain, and your brain will change because this does change. This is a dangerous structure in the brain that causes damage in the brain, and that response in the immune system. So it will affect your neurochemistry, but it's not the cause, it's the result. So putting a chemical in won't fix the problem, and basically psychotropics are just going to numb the brain. So they're numbing the effect. It's like going into your garden and you weed, but you don't actually pull the weeds out. You just chop the head off. That's not or stomp on them. They come back. So that's what medication will do. Plus, it adds a few other things to the brain. What we have to do is we have to go through the painful work of embracing, processing, and reconceptualizing, which is what the neurocycle system that I've developed is. Does that answer your question?
It does, and then some. So, with the theme of your book, it's a messy process. It's to heal those toxic patterns that didn't grow correctly in your brain. And I think it's so important that you are really driving it home about the distinction between the mind and the brain, because a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that
exactly
directs the brain's action. The brain is a physical reactor or manifestation of what you're thinking, you're feeling, and your thoughts. And if people understand that, you're not going to have the sustainable changes if you're just trying to deal with your physical brain. There's a whole nother level of mental change and psychological change. And to get the outcomes that you want in your feelings and your behaviors. So I I think the audience would want to know, what is this neurocycle process, and how did it come about? How did you come up with it?
Okay, so basically, it's not a new technique. It's not something that replaces any standard kind of therapeutic technique, like whatever anyone uses. There's so many different systems and therapeutic interventions, from open dialogue to CBT techniques, etc., etc. So it's not replacing any of those. Those all have incredibly good value when used in the right way. Now, I just very want to say, as a sort of sidebar here, that I don't think that you can fix anything just with things like cognitive behavior therapy, because they're a bit like chopping the head off and the weed will come back. You can't just train yourself or condition yourself to overcome something. You have to deal with the cause, and then the technique works. Then you can use some of the CBT. There's some brilliant CBT techniques, but they work kind of at the end of the process. And what do I mean by end of the process? Mind management is a process. It's a skill. It's something that we should teach our kids from young. Your mind is always with you. You have a mind right from in the womb. You have a mind, and your mind is constantly developing. And we need to be teaching our children as well as ourselves how to manage our mind. So this is a skill that we can develop. And that's why I've written this book and made it as simple as I can. Even though I've put, you see clinical trials and science and things in there, is because it's very, and I've made, you saw that I've made it quite easy, like the science sections. If you want to skip past them, you can read, what does this mean for you? There's lots of little sections that say, what does this mean for you? So that you can interpret the science, make it a simple way of understanding the science. But essentially, mind is a skill we can develop. We get better and better and better at it. As I showed in my research, you can improve how you manage your mind by up to 81%, which means you can manage anxiety and depression by up to 81%, which is phenomenal. There's no medication that can claim that, and there's no medication involved in this. It's pure mind work. And it's very accepting and hopeful, because basically the concept is all of us are a mess. We're humans. It's so normal to be messy. Every moment that we're awake, we have this beautiful experimental mind, and we've got this beautiful wise mind. So as I explained the neurocycle, I'm just going to give you the philosophy and where it came from, and then give you the basic principles. Okay, so basically as humans, we have this beautiful, as I said, messy mind. It's beautiful. And we have this beautiful wise mind. Now, why do I say they're beautiful? I say they're beautiful because we are experimental creatures by nature. We're little scientists. We open our eyes and life happens, and we get that conversation. We have that email. We have that call. We have that business issue. Life happens, and these problems that it's basically a whole series of problems that we are solving, and all the time we are constantly and so we don't always know what to do. And sometimes the emotions are so heavy because it's a loved one that you're trying to solve something with, and the emotions can override you, and you can become very reactive. But we're always active. The point I'm making is our mind's doing all of that. Our mind is doing all that all the time. So our messy mind is supposed to be experimental, but it's supposed to be managed. So an unmanaged mind is a mind that's off a leash. It's like literally it's going kind of wild. What we're supposed to do is now bring back the wise mind. So two hands here. The wise mind is our instinctive, wired for love, optimism, bias, the need for survival, the wired for love mode. The reason we're drawn to anything that's toxic is not because we're evil inherently. It's because we are drawn for survival. We need anything toxic has created an imbalance. It's a threat to survival, like the virus. So therefore, we need to get rid of it. So we're drawn to that to fix it, not because this is what our structuring is, or that we've got some damage in the brain. So we're not being drawn to that, like, so that's not the magnet catching us kind of thing. We are drawn to that to manage it. So every time we feel drawn to our depression or the anxiety or the frustration, never run from it. Follow the drawing, follow that in a very accepting way, saying, okay, that's my experimental mind that just kind of got stuck in a mess. So that's okay. All humans do this. We all have been in our own unique ways in these same places and will be for the rest of our life. But we're not meant to just keep like stuck. We're not meant to be sort of stuck in it. And that's what is the message today. People aren't being told, hey, face it, deal with it. It's a messenger. It's a very helpful messenger. Celebrate, embrace that depression. Totally, as you say, rebellious in terms of the philosophy, because I'm saying that if you do that, the minute you do that, we see a change neurophysiologically in the brain and body. We see a shift from the stress response working against you to the stress response working for you. We see 1,400 neurophysiological responses working for you instead of against you. So now your brain and your body are on your side. So now your resilience increases. Now you're feeling stronger. And because your body is now working with you, you haven't even solved the problem yet. All you've done is embrace it. Instead of saying, oh, I'm depressed, there's something wrong with me, I need to go to the doctor, I've got this brain disease, and seeing it like cancer, which is the scary message we've had. It's nothing like cancer or diabetes. It's you just being human. You've gone through something. You were awful and irritable and said something nasty. So what? Own it. Someone else, everyone else has done that too.
This is so important, especially when we as parents try to downplay our kids when they finally reveal to us they're feeling down, they're feeling depressed, they're feeling anxiety, and sometimes we downplay it and say that's nothing, or minimize their feelings. But it sounds like the correct response would be to help them to explore it and lean into it so that you can start to deal with the root of it.
Exactly. It's lean into it. It's instead of seeing that as something scary, see it as something totally helpful, and you lean into it. It's this shift in perception of, oh, this is scary, it's terrible, I mustn't feel this, there's something wrong with me, I've got a brain disease, oh dear. And that feeling, that takes away agency. It takes away control. It brings fear. The minute you bring fear, your whole neurophysiology works against you instead of for you. You're creating a terrible environment in your brain and your body. So here you can say, okay, I embrace the depression. What do we do when we embrace? We bring it into our fold. It means that we accept it. In depression, anxiety, frustration, irritation, guilt, condemnation, shame, those are all very helpful messengers. And if you see it like that, you are actually shifting in, you are operating within your wired for love mode, your optimism bias, and you're getting control over this. Now, we know from neuroscience that when you suppress something, it controls you. But as soon as you express something, as soon as you become aware of it in the sense of mind management, that, okay, I'm embracing this thing. It's telling me something. It's telling me a whole story. I'm going to be a thought detective to find out what it's telling me. And I own it without feeling bad, because everyone else is doing the same thing in their own ways. I'm not the first person to have said something nasty to my child because I was tired and reacted. I'm not the first person to have gossiped about someone. I'm not the first person to, you know what I'm saying? We got to tell ourselves those things. I'm not the first person to feel depressed because my finances are not what they used to be because of COVID. I'm not the first person to have lost someone and be grieving. Do you see? We've got to give ourselves so much more grace and acceptance. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have a neuropsychiatric brain disease if you're feeling sad. That's how you come into the neurocycle process. That is what I saw.
That's the mind talking.
That's the mind. Yeah.
Because people would think that that's your brain talking, but
no, your brain can't talk. Your brain can't talk. Your brain can do nothing. Your brain just simply is something that your mind is using. Your brain without you is nothing. So your mind is using your brain, and all the structures of your brain are designed to be used by your mind how you want to. So you direct the neuroplasticity. So yes, your mind is talking. When I say to myself, I embrace that depression for the message and it's okay, that's my wise mind talking. And when I say, oh, that's the messy mind experimenting and reacting, that's my messy mind. And the two are designed to work together. And that's how you approach the neurocycle. So the neurocycle was born 38 years ago, literally when I started my research in the desperate attempt to understand mind, brain, and the mind-brain connection. What are thoughts and what are memories and how do they work? And do we have agency? And yes, we have agency. Yes, we can control this. The minute and how? How? Through mind management. Where does mind management start? This embracing thing that I'm talking about, this awareness of embracing things. So awareness and embracing go together. And that is basically how you start the mind management process. So mind management process is self-regulation. It's self-regulating. So when you mind manage, you are self-regulating. How do you begin mind management self-regulation? Through embracing how you are showing up and becoming not just aware, like in terms of the awareness that we talk about today, in mindful awareness and mindfulness, which are all great things, but that's only brain preparation. That's just kind of being aware of how you're showing up. You've got to take that and go beyond. You can't just say, oh, I feel like this and I'm not being judgmental. That's good, but it's not enough. You've actually got to regulate that.
Enough, because you talk about that in your book. It's like once you're aware, if you don't know what to do next, you're just kind of, you default back to your original state of mind.
You basically do. You default, you'll get worse, and that's what I showed with my experimental subjects. I actually had that image in the book where we show in the brain what happens if this is basically just looking inside the brain, so people will be able to see these colored graphics. This is basically one of the subjects of my case studies in one of the experimental in my recent clinical trial that's in the book. And that person, the red, just look at the red. The red shows a brain that is incredibly highly fired up and very anxious. Too much of all the energy is flowing in the wrong direction, and things just not connecting and working well at all. This is someone who's really going to be battling. Now, this is someone in the experimental, in my research, in the control group that didn't get any mind management. And they were tested at day 1, day 21, day 63. And at each point, we looked at all the psychological stuff. Most importantly, we look at their narrative. What's happening? What's going on in your life? What has gone on in your life? Then we did all the brain testing, and we did all the a lot of blood biomarkers. We even looked at DNA. And that's all in the book. So what I showed that in doing that testing, they became very aware. Okay, this is my story. This is what's going on. These are my behaviors. I'm feeling so anxious. I'm having panic attacks. I can't do this. I can't do that. This is in my relationship. That's what we picked up at these. That's what they told us. Now they got all this testing. Not only at these, they got 6 other testing points too. So there was a lot of testing points. So the control group constantly were made aware of their issues, but they got worse and worse and worse. By the end of the research, they were in such a state. Obviously, we gave them the mind management at the end of the research. But if you become aware and you keep pulling this up and you don't do it, it goes back even stronger than before. And so you try and suppress more, and then you come up, and so you have to go beyond awareness. You have to do something with what you're aware of. So the subject on the previous, if you go back, these are both case studies in the book. This subject, you'll see the brain is very blue, and that's at day 1. They were very depressed, very offline. Their story was like they were really depressed, offline, unhappy, no hope, not managing at work, relationship, just like everywhere. And had tried everything, all the different techniques, medications, nothing was working. By day 21, using mind management, their brain had gone to this gray scale, and the gray shows that the brain's stabilizing. The green over there shows that that person's now changed the identity. So here they were saying, I am depression. I am hopeless. So that was their idea. But here they were saying, I'm not depression. I felt depression because of, they'd become a thought detective. They found the reason why. So they'd shifted from I am depression to, so the awareness of depression or the awareness of behavior, not doing something about it will keep you stuck. You'll get worse. But when you manage it, you get better and better. And this was sustained at day 63. It takes 63 days to change behavior. So the behavior hadn't changed at this point. We always think it's 21 days, but it isn't. It's actually 63. By this day, they were actually changing their behavior. So the ability to sleep, improve work, relationships, etc. So by this stage, their behaviors were changing, and they were saying, okay, now I know what to do. Depression will come again. Anxiety will come again. But it doesn't mean that I am brain diseased. It means that I'm experiencing something. There's a reason behind this, and this is what I need to do. That's the difference. The other person, the other subjects in the control group, and this I've seen not just in this is my research over the years. This has just confirmed it again. This is what I've been doing for 38 years, is that they said, okay, well, this is what's going on, but I don't know what to do with it. And they just got worse and worse. So we've got to start the Neurocycle grew out of this very clinical therapeutic sense for people with traumatic brain injuries, the area you work in, and people with severe learning disabilities, people with severe trauma like war trauma, sexual trauma, Alzheimer's, autism. Those are the areas. I just wanted something that people could actually feel agency and hope again. And so, okay, this is why I'm feeling like this. What is the reason? How can I shape this differently so that it works out differently in my life? And that's where the Neurocycle was birthed. Initially called something else. Recently, I've called it the Neurocycle to make it easier to access. Not as therapy technique, it's how a human manages their mind. So it doesn't replace therapy, it enhances therapy, it enhances life. You go to therapy once or twice a week, or you attend courses or whatever once or twice a week or whatever, but you live with yourself 24/7. What are you going to do with your mind 24/7? That's what the Neurocycle does. It teaches you how to get into this mode of, it's okay. I've got a messy mind that's reactive, but that's why I have the wise mind. And when I self-regulate, I can use my wise mind to say, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't have said it like that. Maybe you can actually approach, in other words, what have you done and how can you fix it? And how can you drive that in the correct direction? And how can you reconceptualize it? So the Neurocycle can be used for the moment by moment stuff. So you get into an argument and you've now got to sort that out, or someone sends you an awful text and you're about to go and do a podcast interview, or you have an argument and now you've got to go into a business meeting and kind of got to get yourself back together. You can use the neurocycle in that moment. And just in general, with anything, any discomfort at night when you're sleeping, building new habits, you'll see that in the second part of the book, I show you that your mind does everything. Exercise, even exercise. If you don't have your mind right with exercise, you lose up to 80% of the benefit of the exercise. So I neurocycle before every workout I do. So it's a preparation. I prepare my brain for exercise. So that then you can also use the neurocycle to work on those patterns, and patterns means that there's an established toxic trauma of some sort. And it could be anything from just maybe being bullied at school or bullied in the workplace, or caring for a loved one who's got severe issues, and it was just so trauma. Everyone's got a story. So as soon as you identify the patterns that are established, so they need more time to be identified and worked through. And that's where you would use the neurocycle then daily for 15 to 45 minutes for the first 21 days, which is what the subjects in my clinical trial did. And then from day 42 to 63, you just do the fifth step with these 5 steps. So everything's been very systematically worked out and tested to do what? To help you get your messy mind talking to your wise mind, working together and improving your self-regulation, that you're conscious and deliberate every 10 seconds. So that all day long when you're awake, you are catching yourself all the time. First, it's kind of hard because we've trained ourselves to be reactive. Now we've got to train ourselves to be responsive. So self-regulation and mind management teaches you to move into responsiveness. So that's kind of the background of the whole thing. Did you want to unpack anything from there before I dive in more? Where would you like to go from here?
I love how you are normalizing that we all have mess, right?
Yeah.
We're neuroscientists, we have mess. Everybody has a messy brain. It's this human experience. But I also love how you are sharing how easy and accessible it is to manage your mind. But
yes.
Skill set like anything else, riding a bike, cooking, a new recipe. It's going to take time and effort. And I know you mentioned the 63 days that it's going to take. A lot of people are trained to think 21 days.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who think that 63 days is just too long when they're dealing with so much in the moment? How do they keep from giving up and really believe that this is going to serve them if they just stick with it?
Well, that's an excellent question. And the simple version of the answer is that your mind is working anyway. So if you don't manage it in a systematic way, it's just going to get more and more messy. So you just can get increasingly messy over 63 days. And then it becomes even harder to change. Or you can become systematic and organized in training your mind this is something you train your mind. Your wise mind trains the messy mind to work with the wise mind. So it's all this you-ness. When we talk about you can do this, that's all mind. So you basically are driving that mind, and 63 days is not long if you think of it in terms of that's scientifically how long it takes for behavior to change. So people get stuck. They start something, they go to 4 days, 7 days, maybe 21 days, and then they wonder why I'm still stuck, because it's like a little plant. If you make it grow a little plant and you plant it and it starts peeking above the ground, it's not strong yet. And that's in 21 days, you'll make a new little plant. You'll identify this, break it down, reconstruct it, and deconstruct and reconstruct it into this. But it's a tiny little new thought with memories. You have to give it enough energy. There's trillions and trillions of competing thought trees in your brain. So, and these were very strong triggers. This is a very strong trigger. So if this was maybe some kind of a bullying in the workplace, and that maybe there was also bullying in your history as a child at school or something, there's a whole thing there around I'm worthless. I deserve to be just kind of beaten down by people, and the only way I can maybe control this is by people pleasing. That's the only way I can get people to. So you notice there's a pattern of people pleasing in your life, and by neurocycling, you increase your self-regulation. So you see, hey, there's a pattern of people pleasing. Why am I people pleasing all the time? And when you stop and do the neurocycle over that time period, you'll see, well, I'm people pleasing because actually I was bullied at the workplace. I was bullied as a child. I've had so much bullying that I think the only way I can make people happy is if I people please. Well, that's not the truth. The truth is that I actually am worthy, whatever. So then, and that process is not going to happen with reading 5 great Instagram posts or reading, like following you and me and reading that, which they should do because you and I both give great information. information, but you can't just read it. We've become so, in this technological quick fix society, we've become so, okay, well, I've read it now. Why am I fixed? Let me go to the therapist. The therapist must fix me. No one can fix you. Okay, all you can do is get support. Your therapists are brilliant in terms of support, but you have to be able, you're the only one who can choose to fix yourself. You've got to choose to be self-regulating yourself and be a thought detective. And that means committing to yourself. So your mind, so to summarize that, the way I help people to understand 63 days is really not long at all. And a big trauma might need 5 or 6 cycles. I don't know. It's different for every person. Heavy trauma very often will require years. So you may find you might do 17 cycles over a period of time before you, and there's no time. That's okay as long as you're working in these cycles, because from the brain science, the neuroscience, we know certain changes are happening at each point. And I do explain that in the book as well. So you know now that there's a systematic, organized way that you can drive your mind to drive the neuroplasticity of your brain to achieve the goals that you want. And if you don't do it, it's still doing that, but it's in the wrong direction. So you're increasing your toxicity. So that's kind of, when people get that shift and realize, well, my mind's working anyway, I may as well have it organized. I don't like the feeling of, yeah, you might as well. And once you do it once and you see the success, oh my gosh, the sense of peace. It doesn't mean that I live a life that's totally now stress-free and messiness-free. I'm a complete mess a lot of the time. But the difference is I recognize it so quickly and I manage it so quickly. So what would have been something that maybe consumed 50, 60% of my day, maybe even more, which is kind of the average mess that we're in most of the days. Because we get thrown so much during the course of the day and it's cumulative. So if you're not mind managing, you could have up to 60, 70% of your day that you just feel overwhelmed. And that's very common. If you talk in today's age, you'll hear that. I just feel overwhelmed all the time. With mind management, that goes away. You don't expect not to be depressed. You're still going to be depressed and anxious. But the difference is that as soon as it comes on, I don't see it as something scary. I say, okay, there's a message there. There's something going on there. Let me find out why I'm feeling this. If I react, in other words, so it's very quick. I'm seeing it within seconds. I'm managing it within minutes, and I'm seeing patterns very quickly. So I'm always working on a daily detox, working on some detoxing, some kind of trauma. So in other words, I'm using it daily for 15 to 45 minutes. That's what I taught my patients to do, millions of people around the world now. And then during the day, I use it all day long. I'm always neurocycling. It's a lifestyle because your mind is a lifestyle. You can't get away from mind. Exactly. Yeah. It's lifestyle. And people are dying 8 to 25 years younger from preventable lifestyle issues. So here I'm giving you the formula for how you cannot be in that statistic. This is how you manage your mind. So, I mean, this is like critical information. And in the 5 steps, as I said earlier on, I mean, you can fit in whatever breathing technique, whatever technique you're using, use them. That's all brain preparation. I even give you those in the book. I talk about preparing your brain. And then once you prepare your brain, then you go into the 5 steps. And preparing your brain is the breathing and the meditation and little mindfulness. But that's only the brain preparation. Then you've got to do the work. And that's where the neurocycle comes in.
Okay, and the length of the neurocycle is about, you said 45 minutes, and there's 5 steps.
Yeah, so there's 5 steps, and basically you do it over 15 to 45 minutes daily for the established stuff. So in chapter 14, I explain how to fit it all in together. So you would do the 5 steps over 15 to 45 minutes daily for 21 days, and then from day 22 to 63, it takes about a minute a day. So the last 6 weeks, it's a minute a day. It's 42 minutes over 42 days. It's nothing to transform a behavior. So it's just practicing using something, and then but in the moment you can use it in 5 seconds. So let's say you read your Instagram post, someone comments, you suddenly feel this rush of imposter syndrome, and you've got to go into a dinner, and now you're feeling awful. So you can neurocycle in 5 seconds. You can quickly gather awareness, which is the first step. And gather awareness is gather. Gather, think of gathering. Gathering means I control. Gather, I choose what I'm going to gather. It's a very positive word. So you gather awareness of, okay, I'm feeling worked up. I'm feeling frightened. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling useless, whatever. You identify, you gather like apples in a basket. Your behaviors, I'm feeling withdrawn. Your physical behaviors, my stomach is sore. Your perspective, I'm useless. You quickly gather awareness of that. I did that in 2-3 seconds. I said it now, okay? So now you go to step 2, which is reflect. Why am I feeling like this? Why have I reacted to this? Why am I feeling these feelings? Why have I reacted? Ask, answer, discuss. 3rd step, write it down. If you don't have time to write in the quick ones, the 15 to 45 minutes, you've got time to write. And step 3 and 4 are writing steps. And I'm very specific about how to write in the 15 to 45 minute daily sessions. There's very specific ways that you can write that are very mind-brain friendly and help you to introspect deeper and find the cause much quicker. So you can dive deep with the the ways this, and I teach that very clearly in the book. But the in the moment stuff, you don't maybe have time to write, or if you do, quickly write on your phone maybe, or write on whatever you can grab. But or you could just visualize in your head. And what you would visualize is you watch yourself like a movie. Watch yourself going through what you've just gone through, reading the comment on Instagram and your response. Just do a little visual movie of that and visualize yourself analyzing why. So the third step is to actually see the little incident and how you gathered and how you reflected. So you're looking back, and that takes you even deeper. So each of these is taking you deeper and deeper, forcing the two sides of, as you and I both know, we need coherence between the two sides of the brain. We need blood flow, a lot of blood to the front of the brain and oxygen to the front of the brain to decrease impulsivity. We want to have a lot of connectivity between the different structures of the brain, specifically the hippocampus, amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, in order for us to think with cognitive flexibility. The neurocycle has been designed to force that process, to literally drive that process. So if you do it very systematically, that's what you're doing. So the third and fourth step are a writing step. And as I said, if you've in the 15 to 45 minutes, you would physically write down in the form of a metacog. And I explain that in the book. It's a pattern way of writing that does all this great brain stuff. But when you're in the moment, just before you go into a meeting example, you're going to just visualize it. And that just changes and takes you even deeper into introspection and finding out why you're doing it. The fourth step is a recheck, where you actually look at, okay, so well, that's what happened. This is how it made me feel. This is why I'm doing it. This is definitely a pattern in my life. I need to start doing a long neurocycle on this, but I keep doing this. But for now, this obviously triggered something that's deeper that I need to pay attention. But for now, I've got to get my head back on to get into this business meeting. So fifth step, what can I do? What action? What active reach can I do to get myself calm? And maybe it could be take 5 deep breaths, or it could be a 10-second pause, which is a way of breathing that can help bring blood flow to the front of the brain very fast and control the neurochemistry. I talk about that in the book. It could be a thing like, I'm going to tell myself it's fine, I'll deal with it later. And I'm going to train myself to compartmentalize it. Or I'm going to put it in a little box for now and lock it up and go to the meeting. And after the meeting, I'll go and unlock the box. So it's always some little action step. And that's where CBT and those these lots of great ACT and the different therapy techniques can give you lots of ideas for actions. So the active reaches are, that's where you would fit in technique. So, because this is not a technique, this is a system. The techniques fit in down the bottom at step 5 when you're starting to see the root. And then you would go into a business meeting. If it's the big picture thing where you see, okay, well, I keep on doing this, so now I need to find out why I keep reacting in this way. Why have I got such a serious people-pleasing imposter syndrome mentality around what people say to me around social media? This is affecting all my self-confidence. This is a pattern. I need to spend 63 days. So then I start day 1 and I take, instead of doing it in a few seconds, I take 3 or 4 minutes to do my gather. I take 3 or 4 minutes to do, or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to do my reflect. The writing steps will take longer. So the step 3 and step 4, which are the writing steps. Step 3, where you just literally pour your brain on paper in this messy metacog thing, which just drags stuff out of the depths of your unconscious, is kind of disorganized, but you'll be amazed at what comes out that you didn't even realize was there. The fourth step, you then reorganize that and find the patterns and antidotes and activators and that kind of thing. And so you'd spend maybe 7 or 8 or 10 minutes on those 2 steps. And then step 5 is then, okay, what did I learn? What can I do for the rest of today? Because you don't want to ruminate for the whole day around that issue. You want to be progressing forward all the time. What we're doing in today's world is we're teaching people to ruminate and get stuck. So talk, and going around. And one of my I interviewed someone the other day who's gone through excessive trauma, and what he was saying is he went to talk therapy for 13 years. It didn't help me, just got in a hole. And it was only when he actually grabbed hold of one of my books and he actually realized, hang on, there's a system to this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. It's good to talk. I'm supposed to be moving forward, so that's what this gives you. This gives you a way of not just doing this, but actually moving forward.
I absolutely love that, which is one of the reasons I transitioned out of clinical neuropsychology, because I didn't want to keep going in circles. I wanted to move people forward. Let's talk about what's going right with your brain, and let's
love that.
Right?
I love that you did that. I love that you said you transitioned from clinical neuropsychology, which is doing pretty much labeling, diagnosing, and getting people stuck in the same place.
8 to 12
and then clinical pharmacology, diagnosing. It's just all about what are the symptoms and what's the medication, what's the chemical to treat it. We become avatars. Where's the story in the whole thing? It's sad.
And I guess I could say now was listening to my higher mind say, this is not you. This is
Yeah,
sit here for 8 to 12 hours a day telling people what's wrong with their brain, and then you got to tell people, their caregivers, what's wrong with their brain, and then I go home and I start looking for everything wrong in the world because now my brain is
it's just thinking of, oh, it's awful.
domino effect. So
Yeah,
we have to be able to listen to that mind clearly. Sometimes when our brains are not healthy, our physical brains, it's hard to get the signals and
exactly.
for our brains. So or minds. So I think people need to really understand that distinction between mind and brain, and they
Yeah,
need
it's
a
key.
healthy physical brain so that they can listen and adhere to what their wise mind is telling them to do,
Exactly.
shift their thinking and behavior. So
Exactly. Well, you summarize my book in those statements. That's what I teach you to do. What is the higher mind, the wise mind versus the what is mind? And then the second part of the book's how do you do it?
I absolutely love your cycle, your neurocycle, your system. You are empowering
Thank you.
people. How to use,
Thank you.
first of all, understand the difference between mind and brain, but you give them a tangible system to move through what's been holding them back for sometimes decades, and you're making it accessible to people. And I love that mission of you making neuroscience and this whole realm of brain possibility, mind possibility, accessible to the world.
Well,
And
thank you.
I love your work. So everyone, go buy this book and study it like a manual.
Thank you.
Dr. Lee, do you have some kind of group where people can come together who are reading your book and want to go through the cycle together, maybe?
Well, I'm starting. Yes, we have. Well, at this stage, there is a Facebook group that's been set up, so people can. Yeah, it's been set up by, and so they can do that. But what I'm doing is we've got it. It's all in the works at the moment. But I have an app which was it's called the Switch app, but it's been renamed this Neurocycle app, and it was released this. It's just been redone and with all this new information and upgraded. So that's out. So that's really great because then you can have the audio driven, like literally me giving you therapy every day. And then we have a Neurocycle Lab that's starting very soon where people can do exactly that. They can come together and learn how to do all of this in a group situation. So that's all being set up at the moment, will be relaunched very soon. And then we've also got a certification, a Neurocycle certification, not club, certification program, sorry, being set up that will be established towards the second half of the year. We'll be training clinicians and that kind of thing. So in the meantime, people can get the book, they can get the app, they can follow me on social media, Dr. Caroline Leaf. I have my podcast, as you mentioned, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. And then like these discussions we're having now are helping people. So
Absolutely. You are just enlightening people's minds and breaking myths and
thank you.
shifting paradigms, which has to be done in order for change to happen.
Absolutely.
People can work from the mind instead of just the brain.
Exactly, which is so, if you just work from the brain, if you're not a neuroscientist or clinician, you're taking people's power away from them because people think, well, I need to go to the expert to go and get help, but you can give yourself so much help. And I'm not saying don't go to the expert at all. I'm saying go for the therapy, but go within, realize that, you're only with them for small periods of time. You still need
Right.
to manage your mind.
Time. And that's what I tell my coaches
Exactly.
that I train. It's like they're away from you 99% of the time. So they need to be empowered about their own brain and mind. So when they're in the moment of challenge, they can direct, where they
Exactly.
want their brain to go in the moment.
Exactly.
Are doing
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah, well, this Neurocycle, it's directed neuroplasticity. That's what I'm teaching people. I talk about throughout the book, you would have picked up, I talk about directing your neuroplasticity with your wise mind. So, that's something you can, and the more you do it, the more you improve yourself. And it's amazing how much peace you can get. It doesn't mean you're going to not have periods where you're unhappy, and that's normal, but that's the whole thing. It is normal. And you just learn how to manage it. So you accept them and you manage them as opposed to being scared of them and then they control you.
And it also can be fun because you can also direct your own neuroplasticity towards being creative and humorous. And I mean, it could actually start being fun. And your
I'm
brain
so glad. Yeah.
Power. Your mind, it could be a super.
Exactly. I love you mentioned that. I actually put a whole chapter in here on brain building, which you'll see, which is one of the most essential tools for mental health. And that's all about building your brain and learning new stuff. And then I've got a whole section on building new habits into your life and increasing creativity using the neurocycle. So basically mind driving brain.
I love it. Well, I look forward to reading the rest. You see, I got it.
I'm very impressed. Thank you so much. I'm very honored. Thank you so much.
I wrote in it and everything. So I'm one of those people. Thank you so much, Dr.
Oh, thank you.
for joining me and enlightening people who are listening to this podcast. You really served them today. I
Thank you.
suggest everyone who's listening to, download this and listen to it again and again, and listen to it while you're reading the book, so you can get even more perspective and really implement this new neurocycle that Dr. Leaf has unleashed to the world, unveiled to the world. And I'm so happy that I can help to amplify your message today, so
Thank
that
you.
we can change the world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I've loved talking to you. It's always lovely talking to a fellow neuroscientist who understands the other side, not just stuck inside the brain, but there's actually another whole world out there called the mind.
So, absolutely. And I love the study of neuroscience of spirituality,
yes.
theology,
Beautiful.
right?
Oh, yes. Super interesting.
The evidence to these spiritual practices.
Absolutely. Our mind is totally, our mind is totally spiritual. So yeah, it's wonderful. I love that too.
Thank you for having coffee with the
Oh, thank you. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
You're welcome back anytime.
I'd love to come back. Thank you so much.
Okay. Remember, everyone, when you better your mind and better your brain, you can better your impact and clean up your messy minds. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Did you like this episode? Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast and share with a friend. And if you consider yourself a modern thinker, and if you want free mindset success tools and more tips and strategies on how to use neuroscience in your everyday life and how to stay motivated and inspired to live your best self, come visit me at shontétaylor.com, enter your name and email address, and sign up for my newsletter. Remember, when you better your mind, you better your brain, you better your impact.